Hello, it's autumn in America and I have lived through 17 of these now, and my team thought it would be a good idea to ask you lot to submit questions to me about my experiences with American fall. I have to confess, I haven't read any of these questions in advance, so what I say will be from the top of my head, which is always a recipe for both disaster and hilarity. And if those are two things that you like and you haven't had a chance to subscribe to this channel, do that now! In the meantime, let's take a look at some questions. Alright, the first question comes from Barb P8618, who asks, do people in England decorate their homes for Halloween and fall? And my honest answer to that is, I don't remember. I don't think we tend to go all out on things like that. In my street, in Chicago, where I live, just about every other house has at least something up, whether it's just a basic spider web or an entire garden devoted to monsters and skeletons that scare my dog. And it's like I was saying to my hairdresser earlier today, that while Halloween historically originated in Scotland, many of the present day traditions that we all take part in originated right here, not in Lincoln Park, but in America. And so it just feels like, even to this day, America has a bigger stake in going all over the top with it. And the other thing is, in Britain, our houses are old enough that they look like they're from some sort of horror story. So we don't really have to do anything like that. Neil Simri 3481 asks, why are there women in America named Autumn, but none named Fall? I've not had a chance to think that question through, Neil, but I would imagine that there are all manner of complications with calling your daughter Fall, especially if your last name is Down. Plus, in the fall-autumn debate, I think that autumn is a more beautiful word, whereas fall is a more functional word. Do you want to call your kids something functional? But I think in general, in America, you have people who've got names that are seasons. Autumn, summer, winter. You knew somebody called Winter, didn't you, Tara? Yeah. So there aren't many people called Spring. This one comes from the esteemed Rockin' Stacey, who says, fall comfort food, US versus England. You know, it's a hard question to answer that, because when I think of autumn in the UK, I don't really think of it as this like special time like you do here. So assigning foods to that particular period is quite difficult in my head. I'm sure there are some. But here in the US, it's things like chili, innit? You know, Americans, especially here in the Midwest, we love a good chili. In Britain, though, I mean, what do we go for? I suppose, you know, a warm apple cider. But when I say apple cider, I'm not necessarily meaning what you refer to as apple cider, a non-alcoholic drink, and also cider's not a food, so that doesn't answer your question. Thankfully, despite giving up alcohol during the pandemic, I still drink one of my favourite hangover cures, coffee. That's why I'm thrilled to be partnering once again with Trade Coffee, the online coffee subscription that connects you to the best roasters in the country. Here's how it works. Trade partners with over 55 of America's top indie roasters, from Chicago to Portland and everywhere in between. When you sign up, you take a quick quiz about how you like your coffee, things like roast level, brew method, even whether you drink it hot or prefer cold brew. Trade then matches you with freshly roasted beans that match your specifications. It's like having your own personal barista, except it doesn't spell your name wrong. I drink my coffee both ways. A strong hot cup in the morning, and then when the afternoon heat hits, I switch to a smooth cold brew made from the same beans. And the best thing is, every bag from Trade comes with detailed brewing tips, so you can make it perfectly either way. Try Trade for yourself. Right now, they're offering 50% off a 1-month trial at drinktrade.com/LITP. That's drinktrade.com/LITP to get half off your first month. Dwight Clough asks, what is your favourite autumn tree? And that is a hard one to decide. I think at this very moment, it's the tree behind me, the orange one. And this sort of orange that you see right there is very indicative of the kind of colours you see, not just here in Chicago, but across much of the northern United States at this time of year. I just think there's a greater vibrancy to the fall colours of American trees, and to give you a favourite one would be hard. Right now it is definitely that one. I don't know what kind it is. If you stay right there, I'll go and ask it. So I'll be right back. Hello? Sorry, what kind of tree are you?
I'm a sugar maple tree. For hundreds of years, human beings in North America have leveraged me and my kind for maple syrup. I've heard it's yummy, but I wouldn't know because I'm a tree. Thanks for calling me your favourite tree. You're my second favourite YouTube sensation, behind Coco Melon. Alright, I'm coming back. Hi, squirrel. How are you doing, mate? There's squirrels everywhere. Gloria 68 says, never forget pumpkin.
everything pumpkin. And it's true. In my last video, I told you that Iowa produces more corn than any state in the nation. Do you know which state produces the most of these? Not these, this is fake, but real pumpkins. The answer, Illinois, the state that I'm currently in. You won't see many of them being grown here in Chicago itself. They're usually in the kind of rural places. Gloria's right. Pumpkin, being orange, is sort of a natural symbol for autumn in America, and it serves so many purposes at Halloween, but also beyond. You know, you create things like pumpkin pie. Americans love those. I don't know that they're quite so popular in Britain. However, pumpkins themselves have, since I left, started taking on more of a role in British autumn life. Gospel Girl 33 AD asks, what is your favourite thing to do at home, and how is that different from when you were young? Also, I'm a fairly new subscriber, so hi. Hi. Here's the thing about that. Autumns in Chicago are pretty similar temperature-wise to autumns in Britain. So in that respect, it doesn't differ so much, but what I do to combat that does differ a little bit. Nowadays, in our new house, we actually have a fireplace. When we can be bothered, we actually light with real wood. When we can't be bothered, we just use the fake fireplace. In Britain, I'd cuddle up next to the radiator. We have these big metal radiators on our house. It's quite common in Britain. Sometimes I'd rest my hand on those for so long that I'd burn myself. Anardi7112 asks, will you come and rake my leaves? And I don't have a going rate for that kind of job, but when I first moved to America, that was my first job at the behest of my parent-in-laws, who paid me a small amount of money, and I hated it. It was a lot of work to do with one rake in a massive backyard. You've got to remember that backyards in this country typically are bigger than backyards in Britain, so the job is just so much greater, and I just don't think that I was compensated fairly. The leaves that fall on the ground, they're less wet. It just feels like it rains in Britain, and all the leaves just get like all pushed to the side of the road in one big wet clump. So it's easier to pick them up probably. You just get a shovel and put them in a bin. Here, they're everywhere. I mean, look, you can see them on the ground. So the short answer to that question is, no, I'm not going to rake your leaves. Tremors fan asks, have you ever tried your hand at leaf peeping? And this term is something that I understand to be something that originated in the northeast of the United States, where you basically go on a little tour of that area of the world and look at leaves. I mean, there are worse ways to spend your day, aren't there, I suppose? I like being out in nature. I think it calms me. It brings a smile to my face. Well, at least internally it does. I don't usually show it. And so I think leaf peeping, in the sense that I just described, sounds actually quite nice. I haven't officially done it. I've just sort of casually done it, like I'm doing right now. But let me know in the comments if you've ever been leaf peeping, unless it's a euphemism. I don't want to know any more after that. B-Dubs49 asks, does England have a harvest festival similar to US Thanksgiving? And is it a national holiday? Yes and no. Yes, we do have a harvest festival, but it's not a national holiday. It's one of those observances that I think most people in England don't really take part in. And I attended such festivals when I was a kid to bring sort of food and things like that, but it doesn't have the name recognition that Thanksgiving does here. Virtually everybody who is a citizen or resident of this country probably participates in Thanksgiving in some way, but UK Harvest Festival, I mean, it's one of those things you did at school and then forgot about until I moved here, and then I was reminded that the Thanksgiving here was sort of based on our Harvest Festival. I was like, what Harvest Festival? Oh, Harvest Festival, I remember that! I got a gold star one year!
Feels like a rainbow.
Drew Morrison 7625 asks, is there a similar thing as leafers or leafing or leaf peeping in England? And my honest answer to that is, I don't think so. This is a phenomenon I only heard of after moving to the US. I think the nearest thing that I could think of to that is either bird watching or train spotting. I don't mean the film with Ewan McGregor. I mean the act of going out and looking at trains and getting their numbers because you're that heavily invested as a nerd. I'm a nerd myself. It's just trains are not my focal point when it comes to that. And Evie Beezy asks, is flannel plaid a thing in the UK during autumn? Not as much as it is here by any stretch. For instance, when Karen Gillan wore flannel in Doctor Who, she looked American, whereas when she met me, she looked starstruck, let's be honest. But the word flannel in the UK, typically speaking, means something else. It means a washcloth. So I think some people might get linguistically confused, but I will say this, I love flannel shirts. In the past 2 years, I've started wearing them. It is my slow march to becoming a a Midwesterner. Lil Big Rig W9904 asks, what was Hayrides like in the UK? Well, what you have to remember is that in the UK, that is our primary mode of transport. I'm kidding. We've moved on from those days, thankfully. You know, I only have vague memories of doing hayrides as a child. It was, I'm sure, good, you know, from what I can remember. I've also only done one hayride in this country. I fell asleep halfway through because I realised it doesn't get me from A to B anywhere near as quickly as jogging. But I also don't like to jog, so it made up for that. And finally, ChatGPT has a question for me, and that question is, why do you think Americans are so obsessed with autumn? And I think I have a good answer for this. I think, especially here in the northern part of the United States, because our winters are just such a hellscape, this is like our last hurrah. We know what's coming, so let's just enjoy the absolute arse out of this. And it's pretty. Like I said, the colours are nice, and people respond well to vibrancy. I must confess, it's my favourite season. I suppose the reason for that is that it's the time of the year in the Midwest that's most like England. And it's like the old saying, you can take the boy out of England, but you can never take England out of the boy, unless the boy is the European Union. Well, that was fun, everyone. And until next time, watch this video, and goodbye.